Hi all, welcome to the first episode of Heightened Curiosity. I'm your host Mike, and allow me to introduce myself a little before we take a closer look at the UFO related goings on at the now former RAF base at Leuchars, which is situated here on the east coast of Scotland. Okay, first up, the name I'm using on this show, Mac, is a little bit of a pseudonym. I'm not at all interested in gaining any recognition or notoriety by posting this content. I'm also keen to keep my professional integrity intact. It's a job I hold just now, and being a UFO stroke cryptid stroke conspiracy researcher isn't wholly compatible. The folks I work with probably think I'm strange enough without having anything else added into the mix. And to be honest, I really do need to keep a professional facade at least to effectively maintain the credibility I need to do my job. I hope you don't mind, it's just something that's going to work best for me. So, why start the Heightened Curiosity channel? Well, it's something I've been toying with for a while now, and I guess we all need some kind of lockdown project, so I finally bit the bullet. Employed my spare room studio setup for something other than music. As I mentioned in the Heightened Curiosity channel trailer, I've been pretty much obsessed by the weird and the strange since I was a kid. You'll have heard it all before from those other folks interested in these same kinds of topics. I too was a kid in the library studying those mysterious universe or unexplained world type books. I couldn't get enough of those growing up, and it clearly had a huge influence on my reading and research habits as an adult over the last 30 years. These books would cover a wide range of topics from the stuff I really loved like UFOs, Bigfoot, Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster, and other mysteries I might be a bit less enthusiastic about, such as Mare Celeste, ESP, Stonehenge, etc. I guess this is what I want to do on this show. I'm interested in all types of fringe topics, and will cover a diverse range as much as I can to reflect what I've studied over the years. As the channel trailer hinted at, I'll try to take a more granular look at the subjects I feature, and will always take a measured approach in what we present here. No jumping to conclusions, no feeding you guys bullshit in the name of entertainment or clicks. And as you may be able to tell by my accent, I'm based here in Scotland. It may well be that some of the episodes may have a Scottish or UK element, which I hope you guys will appreciate and enjoy. In regard to the UFO subject, my interest was likely piqued even before those trips to the local library. My parents, who normally had zero interest in anything out of the ordinary, seemingly saw a UFO once, and it seemed to have left quite a lasting impression on them. I always remember, if there was a UFO item on the news, he would always say, "Hey, remember that time?" and then relate their story once again. It seemed that when we used to make our annual trip from Scotland to Devon on holiday, we got stuck in a traffic jam. And while people were milling around waiting for the traffic to get moving again, some of them, including my parents, spotted a white cigar-shaped UFO. My parents maintained that lots of people saw it, as some had left their cars and were walking around and pointing to the sky and getting pretty excited about the whole thing. It's something my folks never forgot, and they spoke about it often. If my memory serves me correctly, the sighting was around the Bristol area, and we would have been driving on the M5 motorway, and I guess the best date we can attribute to the sighting would probably be around the late 1970s. Apparently I was there, I was in the car at the time, I was present. I don't have any recollection of it at all. My sister was also there. I've asked her about it. She doesn't recall it. She remembers my parents speaking about it, same as me. But it's another sighting that I unfortunately missed. Or perhaps forgotten. Who knows? Such a long time ago. I have, of course, I've looked for a report of the incident, but I've drawn a blank so far. But M5, however, does seem to be no stranger to UFO sightings, and there was a similar incident back in 2008. This time, a Royal Navy aircraft engineer spotted a circular, bright glowing disc close to the town of Weston-super-Mare, which is in the vicinity of where my parents had their sighting too. As you can imagine, being a kid, and if your parents are totally convinced they saw a UFO in broad daylight, when there was a whole load of other people standing around and witnessed the exact same thing, then, that would certainly be enough to open your mind to all kinds of things. And I think this was certainly had an impact on me, for sure. Okay, hopefully that just gives you a little bit of background about myself and where I'm coming from on the subject of UFOs. Just to add, personally I've followed and researched the UFO phenomenon fairly seriously ever since reading Tim Good's incredible Above Top Secret book. And I think it was released in about 1987. I think I read it not long after it was published. I believe it was in the Sunday Times bestseller list for a long time. It was a really popular book at the time. Not only was it popular, it was superb. The book, for those who are not familiar with Tim Good's work or are new to the UFO topic, is simply a must. Over the years, my interest and patience with the UFO subject has peaked and troughed. However, right now, we are seeing some very interesting developments with the recent New York Times articles. I say recent, I think the first one was back in 2017 maybe, so this has been rumbling on for a bit, right? Yeah, I'm aware that many who follow the UFO topic are, are really of the kind of mindset that we're on the verge of something really big happening here. Is disclosure around the corner? Are we about to, have it all confirmed that there is a UFO or alien reality? I'm not so sure. I've been, like I said, I've been immersed in this for over 30 years now, and there's been lots of kind of false dawns, if you like, in terms of, what we think might be revealed, and possibly now we might be at a stage a bit further down the road than we've ever been. But I guess those who have been in the field for quite a long time, you just automatically are extremely skeptical that, any government, be it the American government that's going to drive this, are going to, show their cards on this one. Especially at this moment in time, there's nothing really in it for these guys, not that I can see. I think we need to be realistic about who's driving for, disclosure. Of course, there's a hardcore amongst UFO enthusiasts and researchers who are really pushing to get the information out there. The whole TTSA thing, as much as I criticised, have definitely moved the ball down the field somewhat. However, having said that, out with the UFO kind of world, if you like, or UFO universe, the average guy in the street, your average Joe, does he really, is it the first thing that he thinks about right now in this moment in time is about, the government confirming UFOs? And I've always kind of thought as well, especially given, the current state of American politics and the way that religion is entwined pretty much within American politics just now, it's going to be really hard for, any government to come out, and say, right, guys, here we go. We have evidence or proof of X, Y, and Z, be it craft, be it bodies, be it metamaterials. Yes, I'm fully aware of the stipulation added to the recent US coronavirus relief bill, which basically asked that all of the US intelligence agencies reveal what they know about UFOs. Are they a threat? They need to supply a report to Congress. This needs to be done within 180 days. So the clock is ticking on that one. We are aware that there has been a data dump of documents recently, which I'm still just catching up on just now. But in my mind, I can't help but think that the data dump is here just to kill the report, possibly. So when the report comes out, it's not going to have anything that's going to be a bombshell or anything that we don't already know about, that's not already revealed in those documents that have been declassified or released recently. Either way, it's remarkable that a UFO element has ended up in a bill like this. Let's see where it goes. It's something to look forward to. Maybe at the very least we get another tidbit of the work that the intelligence agencies have been doing on UFOs in the past. They might give us something. Whether it will lead to full disclosure, of course. We can virtually roll that out for now. I think it's something that we could well be moving or nudging towards extremely slowly. But yeah, it's not something that's going to be happening in 2021. Well, not for me anyway. I decided to make our first episode about the now closed RAF Leuchars Air Force Base. What I can relate to you about the base comes from personal experience, so a good topic to kick us off with. I have related this story many years ago. Before the dawn of the internet, I used to write to many like-minded people across the UK and the rest of the world. We would share info and research on the UFO subject primarily. One of my contacts was a journalist who was based in the Midlands, if I remember correctly, and he shared my experience with author Nick Redfern. Nick asked if he could use this information in his forthcoming book. That book was A Covert Agenda, which was published back in 1997, I believe. Anyone familiar with the book, which is another excellent read by the way, will hopefully remember the section Nick covers with RAF Leuchars. Hopefully I can add more detail and context for the first time here. Let's start with some background on the Leuchars Air Base itself. Leuchars is a small town situated in the northeast of the county, or kingdom as it prefers to be known, of Fife, situated on the east coast of Scotland. It's maybe 6 miles or 10 kilometres drive from the famous golf town of St Andrews, and maybe 8 miles or around 13 clicks from the nearest city of Dundee. The base closed down in March 2015 and control of the site was passed from the RAF, the Royal Air Force, to the British Army. Aviation activities at Leuchars actually date back to 1911, when a balloon squadron of the Royal Engineers established a training camp in the area. The unit was officially named RAF Leuchars back in 1920, and the base played a relatively routine role during World War II, where it focused mainly on maritime patrol. It was in the midst of the Cold War during the 1960s the base truly came into its own. The Russians had developed long-range aircraft which allowed them to incur into UK airspace on a regular basis. Lightning F-3 jets were used from a base to intercept any Russian intrusion. This capability was then bolstered by the addition of F-4K Phantom jets in 1969 to be used by the No. 43 Squadron, who would be synonymous with the Leuchars base until the squadron was disbanded in 2009. The Phantoms were then replaced by the Tornado F-3s in the late 1980s, and a few years before base closure, No. 6 Squadron reformed. In 2010, taking over the QRA role, Quick Reaction Alert, Number 6 Squadron, Eurofighter jets, and the Quick Response Alert responsibility transferred 100 miles north to the more remote location of RAF Leuchars in 2015. Okay, so enough of the history lesson for now. My association with Leuchars began back in the early 90s. I had a close knit of friends who I'd known for a number of years, as we had all went to school together. One of my friends, who I will refer to as Mitch, to ensure no reprisals for his candidness. Well, Mitch had left school and he had joined the RAF, the Royal Air Force. He was initially posted overseas, but then after a few years he was assigned to RAF Leuchars, which was great news for us and the rest of his friends and family, as it was only maybe a 1.5 2 hour drive from where we were based. Mitch was married and lived on married quarters in the base, so he had his own home, and myself and my buddies would go and visit him on the base at weekends on occasion. Mitch was posted within the Signals Division, which I knew very little about, but once he started talking about working with radar systems, I then became very interested. Immediately I had questions. So, Mitch, does your radar pick up anything anomalous? I was delighted to learn that the answer was yes. I was keen to learn more. Unfortunately, Mitch couldn't supply many more details because of his relatively low rank at the time. Every time something unexpected was tracked, he was told he had to leave the office. My next question was fairly obvious, right? So, what were you guys tracking when you were told to leave? Mitch wasn't sure, but he reckoned it was test aircraft or simply more Russian incursions. I remember asking him how often he had to leave the room, and I do recall him saying it was fairly often, and either I couldn't pin him down to a frequency or it's one of the details I've forgotten over the years. Fast forward a few years later. I had not saw Mitch for a while, and he called me up one day out of the blue to say he was back visiting his parents, so he was in the area. He asked if I wanted to catch up over a pint, and I jumped at the chance. It was myself, my girlfriend, and Mitch and his wife. We had a great time catching up, of course, but I was always going to ask him about goings on at the base and if there was anything worth hearing about. So I asked him if he had any juicy pieces of info for me, clearly not expecting much. However, he said, well, since the last time I saw you, I've been promoted a few times. I no longer have to leave the office. I was not expecting this response at all. And my immediate question was, well, what happens when you guys pick something up you cannot identify? Mitch said, well, it gets tracked, logged and reported. Great. But do you guys have any idea what they are, if they aren't Russians? Alas, for me at least, Mitch stated quite plainly that whatever was getting picked up was just test aircraft. I was pretty deflated by this response, to be honest, but Mitch went on to describe some of the targets moving at incredible speeds and dropping from almost impossible altitudes. So I asked again, so the anomalous ones are just all test aircraft? Yeah, he believed they were all test aircraft. He was totally convinced by it. So I asked him, is that what the rest of the guys you work with think? He thought about it and said, no, not at all. Most of the guys I work beside are pretty convinced they're UFOs. Oh, okay. Right, okay, interesting. So, Mitch, why do you not think they're UFOs? Well, he replied, they don't exist for a start. Well, this made perfect sense to me now. Mitch and I had previous discussions about the UFO topic, and Mitch could not understand my interest in UFOs and anything, out with the norm. We both went to the same Catholic school, and I guess this is where we kind of diverged. Mitch was a solid, devout Catholic who was also previously an altar boy. For those who don't know what an altar boy does, it's a boy who will assist the priest to hold mass on a Sunday and carry out some other tasks relating to the religion and stuff. Again, I'm not too au fait with what he was doing, but myself, on the other hand, I didn't have any religious beliefs at all. And I'm sure Mitch was following his faith and did not extend, and this didn't really extend to entertaining the notion that there could be life on other planets. I don't think I recall Mitch ever saying this as fact, but I think it was always the conclusion I came to regarding his stance on the subject. I recall asking Mitch about some of the targets that were anomalous and what was the RAF response to these. And he was pretty much of the opinion that we didn't react to most of them. Most of the targets, I think in his own words, he said they came in and went back out again. They weren't a threat to us. And I think he did say that on the previous occasions that we had scrambled, the jets got nowhere near them. As soon as we approached, they were off, and it must be that possibly that the policy is that once these things come in, they get logged and tracked, and we are not going to waste our time trying to chase them. At the time, I was pretty much blown away by this revelation. For me, having a very good friend who I trusted implicitly tell me that our Air Force were tracking unknown craft on a fairly regular basis was mind-blowing. If we have high-ranking RAF signals, radar operators tracking these objects with the belief that they are genuine UFOs, then this was a massive deal. For me, it pretty much confirmed that the UFO phenomenon was a reality. At the time, I was corresponding with other researchers and ufologists, as mentioned, but I wasn't forthcoming with this information for a few years. I'd spoken to a few close contacts about it, and eventually a journalist friend asked if he could share the account with Nick Redfern, and subsequently asked if Nick could use it in his upcoming book. I knew Nick was a journalist and had signed a publishing deal with Simon & Schuster, so I knew the author and the publisher would treat the information correctly. I simply asked that the names of both myself and my friend, Mitch, be withheld. Before we wrap up this episode, just a few more things to cover that some may find interesting about the Leuchars base. I remember Mitch at one point asking me not to speak to anyone about UFOs or anything else strange when on the base. We didn't really interact with anyone else when we were there normally, but on occasion we would visit the mess on the base. The mess, for those who are unaware, is basically the base pub or bar. The reason why he asked me to not engage with anyone else on the subject was, at the time, the base commander of Leuchars was absolutely furious because it seemed that UFOs were the hot topic on the base itself. And everyone seemed to be sharing stories or maybe hypothesizing about what was going on. I found this aspect pretty amusing, as you can imagine, but of course I didn't cause any issues for Mitch by being an outsider, by blithely discussing what was going on at the base in terms of UFOs or radar or jets being scrambled or anything like that. So I kept to myself when I was there. There were a few instances where jets were scrambled to intercept unknown craft around this time, and we can speculate that the pilots and the signal guys were swapping stories in the mess. Mitch had told me himself about a high-profile case, which, if I remember correctly, did actually make the front page of tabloid newspapers here in the UK. Jets had taken off from Leuchars because a member of the Balmoral Castle staff had reported lights they could not explain in the area. I believe Prince Charles was in residence at the time, and I guess it was perceived to be a security threat of some kind. Mitch also spoke about another time when Jets went to investigate a sighting east of the nearby city of Dundee. I did ask if these were tracked by radar at all, but unfortunately Mitch could not confirm this. I was keen to find out if there was unknown targets that were showing up on radar, like the recent USS Nimitz encounter, and if there were alternatively targets that were not being picked up on radar but only being identified by observers who would then call these in. As I mentioned before, the QRA, or the Quick Reaction Alert responsibility carried out by Number 6 Squadron, has moved north to RAF Leuchars, where we can conclude that the tracking of unknown or anomalous objects will continue to this day. The big questions for us are: where is this information sent to, and what do we do with it? Expect a follow-up episode from us where we will look at the options. Most of us will be familiar with the UFO talking head Nick Pope. Nick worked on the UFO desk within the MOD, and it's clear that none of the many reports from Leuchars landed on his desk. RAF Rudloe Manor near Bath in England, and also RAF Farnborough, also in England, have been mentioned previously as potentially having a role in handling the most sensitive UK UFO data. We'll take a look at these installations and analyse the possibility that perhaps one of these is the home of the UK UFO Command. Before we go, I would like to make an appeal to anyone listening who either worked on the Leuchars base or maybe even currently at RAF Leuchars, or maybe you know someone who's assigned there. If you've got any information relating to what we've discussed on the show, I'd be extremely interested in hearing from you. Expect the same courtesy afforded to my friend Mitch, pseudonym obviously. So if you need to withhold your name or any other details, we can assure that we can adhere to whatever requirements you have. My contact details will roll during the credits at the end of the show here, and also can be found on our YouTube channel as well. I just want to thank you all for your time today. I hope you enjoyed our debut episode. Expect much more from us here at Heightened Curiosity. Our next episode will focus on the controversial UK Bigfoot scene. I'm looking to shine a light on what's going on here. We'll look at the sightings, the evidence, and what drives Sasquatch research here in the UK. Like most Bigfoot researchers, I take a pretty sceptical view of what's been purported here in the British Isles, but let's take a much closer look at the information available and examine what we have. Just to add, folks, please comment, like, subscribe, and spread the word, all the usual stuff. It would be so much appreciated. Anyone has any questions, just drop me a line either by email, on our Twitter account, or on the YouTube comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer anything you guys have for me. That's all from me, Mac, at Heightened Curiosity for now. Have a great day, people. Catch you on the next episode, so remember to click the notification icon, and see you later.